Hey everyone. Well, this is my final impression video for Tokyo Chronos. I'm not going to spoil anything, but my thoughts of what I recorded in the first video have changed quite considerably after I've beaten the whole game, played every path. And first, let's talk about the things where I was wrong about my first impression. As mentioned, pretty much the first 3 or 4 chapters, it's all visual novel. A lot of reading, and there are no multiple choice selections that you expect from a visual novel. I was wrong in the fact that there are major decisions that have to be made. And to get the true ending, there's going to be multiple playthroughs. But let me explain this in a way that should make gamers happy about Tokyo Chronos, because I will say right now, it's a wonderful game. People who love visual novels will want to buy this game. Okay, first, the storyline about 8 friends being reunited in an alternate reality of Shibuya in Tokyo. And none of them have the memories of why they drifted apart. All they know is something happened, and the main character, Sakurai Kyosuke, he's a kind-hearted person that wants everyone to be together because it's been so long. Meanwhile, there's an unknown person named Lo. No one knows who he is, but he seems to know everyone, and he hung out with everyone, but no one has a recollection of him. And then you have the mysterious girl who died. Who died? And who killed her? That's the question, where Tokyo Chronos becomes almost like a mystery detective novel, visual novel. But in a way, it's more of an exploration of each character's thoughts, and I'll leave it at that. So, when you first do the first playthrough of the game, you are given 2 choices. One gives you a good ending, the other one gives you a bad ending. So after you beat that first game with the good ending, then you are given a skip button. After you are given that skip button, then you play through the game again. But then, for each character, you are given two choices. A bad ending and a good ending. And so, the good news is that you can skip. And you can replay chapters and, just skip to the dialogue if you want. And just watch each character's main storyline. So, once you have those decisions of each character, once you play through that, if you complete every character's storyline, bad and good ending, then you get the true ending, which extends the gameplay even more. And I could tell you right now, even if you look at my chapter select, in the beginning, you get 7 chapters, but then when you start, going through everyone's story, you get 11, and then you get another 5, and then you get these endings. Extra openings and extra endings. So, I'm not going to play that because it might have spoilers, so I won't even go there. But anyway, let's talk about gameplay. At first, I said that some people may be disappointed because there's not enough. Well, there wasn't any choices to be made. There are choices to be made. It's just not as apparent in the first three chapters. Once you get to the fourth chapter, it seems like it's the same thing, but once you get to the end of the fourth chapter, then you notice that you are giving choices that have to be made. So, in terms of gameplay, I think I put in about possibly around 7 hours, maybe. I think in the first run through, you may put about 4 or 5, and then the second one, if you don't rewatch the dialogue and you just watch the main character's dialogue, that gives you another 2 or 3, and then the final one probably gives you another hour, so maybe 8 actually, of 8 hours of gameplay. It depends of how if you read each dialogue instead of speeding through everything, but there is a lot to this game, so do not give up after you beat the first time, and make sure you play through each character's bad and good ending, and then play it again, or replay that final chapter. I think it was chapter 7, and then it'll open up to chapter 11. It'll go through 11, which gives you an ending that is quite wonderful. If I had to rate Tokyo Chronos, this is the hard part, because Tokyo Chronos is a game that is a visual novel that has an amazing story. But I guess if you compare it to other visual novels where you have to constantly make decisions early on in the game, Tokyo Chronos is not that. Again, the decision making, the first decision where you have to make actually 2 decisions, well, make the first decision, a good or a bad one, happens in chapter 4, and then once you beat that, then it opens up another storyline where you replay each chapter of each character, and that's where you get a ending, a good and bad ending for each person. And those storylines of each character, it's quite touching, because you start to realize that each character has their faults. Each of them have their own sad storyline. But once they truly discover their true selves, they grow as an individual. And without revealing too much about Tokyo Chronos, it's a deep storyline that involves a lot of things that happen in Japanese culture. May it be, the feeling of solitude, the feelings of, bullying and suicide, things that you typically see for those who are familiar with Japanese culture. It's a big issue in Japan. And this storyline pretty much gravitates towards the viewer, even if you live outside of Japan, because we have these situations happening in our country. Bullying, suicide, the feelings of not fitting in. These are all part of life, and in Japan, it's unfortunate that it happens so much to a lot of young people, and where we have levels of support in Japan, unfortunately, the educational system, some educators just are not equipped to deal with it. In fact, can be also part of the problem, but that's another story. But anyway, Tokyo Chronos, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. It's an amazing storyline, and it's almost like a video game that you play, even for the consoles, where it can have the greatest graphics, but if it has a crappy storyline, it doesn't mean much, right? Tokyo Chronos, it may not have the deep gameplay in terms of having choices to be made earlier on, but once you start playing the first game and then you start playing it again, and then you start getting those choices, then you start to realize how deep this game gets and how the storyline really captivates you. And as you can see here, I was playing till almost 2 a.m. with the fight. Well, actually, I went past 2 a.m. because this last chapter is actually quite long. I couldn't stop playing. That's how captivated I was. It's an amazing visual novel. And for those who are not familiar with it, you just have to play through it. You have to beat the good and bad and do not stop from there. Keep on going until you get to the main storyline. And you notice that the chapter progresses to 11, and then you are able to make choices, multiple choices, in this final decision that Sakurai has to make, and I'll just leave it at that. So, Tokyo Chronos, 5 out of 5, and I highly recommend it. Check it out. Stop recording.